Imagine this. It's the early 1960s, in the quiet suburbs of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A boy is born who, on the surface, looks like any other child. His name? Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. No one in that hospital room could have imagined the horrors that this child would one day unleash. His father, Lionel, was a scientist. His mother, Joyce, struggled with depression and addiction. Their home was a battlefield of silence, arguments, and instability. Jeffrey grew up in the middle of chaos, a boy ignored, yet always watching, always learning. From an early age, Jeffrey showed an unusual fascination with death. While other kids played with toy cars, Jeffrey collected the bones of animals he found on the roadside. He would dissect roadkill, fascinated by what lay beneath the skin. Neighbors whispered about the quiet, strange boy who liked to keep jars filled with bones. This was not a passing phase. This was the birth of something darker. But Jeffrey wasn't just a boy with a morbid hobby. He was isolated, alone. He had trouble making friends, avoided eye contact, and spent hours wandering the woods. His parents' marriage collapsed, and the divorce tore his fragile world apart. He became even more withdrawn, hiding his feelings behind silence. But inside, dark fantasies were already beginning to grow. Fantasies of control, power, and possession. By the time Jeffrey reached high school, his drinking had already begun. He would hide alcohol in his locker, sipping it between classes. To his classmates, he was the strange kid, the outsider. But behind the drunken jokes and odd behavior was a boy spiraling into darkness. And when he graduated, he was left with nothing but his fantasies. Fantasies that would soon turn into action. It was 1978. Just weeks after graduating high school, Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder. One evening, he picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. Hicks was only 18, carrying a guitar, on his way to a rock concert. Dahmer offered him a ride. They shared a few beers at Dahmer's house, but when Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer panicked. He struck him with a dumbbell, strangled him, and dismembered the body in the basement. He buried the remains in the backyard. At just 18 years old, Jeffrey had crossed a line he could never return from. After that night, Dahmer tried to live a normal life. He enrolled in college, dropped out, then joined the army. But alcohol consumed him, and he was discharged. He drifted through life, moving between cities, jobs, and temporary homes. For nearly 9 years, he managed to suppress his urges. But fantasies never die. They wait. They grow stronger. In 1987, Dahmer could no longer resist. He met Stephen at a bar in Milwaukee. They checked into a hotel together. Dahmer got drunk and later claimed he didn't remember what happened. But when he woke up, Tiyumi's body lay beside him, beaten to death. Terrified yet aroused by the control he felt, Dahmer stuffed the body in a suitcase, brought it home, and began the process of dismembering it. This marked the beginning of his killing spree. If this story chills you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Gang Stories. Your support helps us bring more dark, untold stories to life. And trust me, the darkest part of Dahmer's tale is still ahead. From 1987 to 1991, Dahmer killed again and again. His victims were mostly young men, often lured with promises of money, alcohol, or photographs. Once inside his apartment, there was no escape. Dahmer's methods grew more disturbing, drugging his victims, strangling them, then experimenting with their bodies. He photographed his victims before and after death, keeping grisly souvenirs. To Dahmer, they were not people. They were objects, things to possess. Imagine Milwaukee, September 1990. The city was quiet, but inside apartment 213, Jeffrey Dahmer was preparing for something darker. That night, 22-year-old Ernest Miller followed Dahmer home. Ernest was a young man full of life, a dancer, a dreamer. He thought he was just going to spend a night with a stranger. He didn't know he was stepping into the lair of a monster. He offered him a drink laced with sleeping pills. Within minutes, Ernest's body went limp. Dahmer used a knife to slash his throat. For the first time, he took things further, experimenting with removing flesh, saving bones and photographing the body in horrifying poses. Ernest Miller's murder marked a turning point. Dahmer was no longer hiding. He was perfecting his ritual. Fast forward to May 1991. His next victim would shock the entire nation. 14-year-old Konarek Syntha, a boy, a child. Dahmer lured him into his apartment with the promise of money and alcohol. He drugged him, assaulted him, and drilled into his skull, attempting his twisted idea of creating a zombie. But fate played a cruel twist. Konarek somehow escaped, stumbling naked, dazed and bleeding onto Milwaukee streets. Neighbors called the police. This was the moment Jeffrey Dahmer should have been stopped. But when officers arrived, Dahmer calmly convinced them that Konarek was his 19-year-old boyfriend. The police escorted the boy back to Dahmer's apartment. Minutes later, the boy was dead. That failure by law enforcement sealed more fates. Over the next 2 months, Dahmer killed 4 more young men. But the walls of apartment 213 were closing in. The smell, the noises, the missing persons. Milwaukee was waking up to the horror. 1991. A hot summer night in Milwaukee. Inside apartment 213, Jeffrey Dahmer made one final mistake. He invited Tracy Edwards, a 32-year-old man, into his home. But unlike the others, Tracy had something different, an unshakable instinct to survive. Inside, Dahmer tried to handcuff Tracy, showed him the knife, and told him to do as he said. For hours, Tracy played along, pretending to be calm while searching for an escape. When Dahmer's attention slipped, he punched him and ran, bolting into the night, still in handcuffs. Tracy flagged down 2 police officers. He led them straight back to apartment 213. The officers stepped inside, and what they found would shock the world. Photographs of dismembered bodies, human heads in the refrigerator, a barrel filled with acid. It was not just a crime scene, it was a nightmare. News broke like wildfire. The Milwaukee Cannibal was arrested. During interrogations, Dahmer confessed in chilling detail. He described how he killed, why he kept the remains, and his obsession with control. Detectives, hardened by years of crime, admitted they couldn't sleep after hearing his words. In 1992, his trial began. Families of victims filled the courtroom, their grief echoing in every word. Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane. The jury rejected insanity. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, 957 years in prison. But prison would not hold him for long. On November 28, 1994, while cleaning the prison gym, Dahmer was attacked by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. With a metal bar, Scarver bludgeoned him to death. The monster of Milwaukee was gone. If this story shook you, don't just walk away. Support the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications.